Hello again, my name is Tanis. If you've been here before and you've come back, well, frankly, that's a miracle because I've been an idiot. Oh, I'm so annoyed with myself. I was mucking about with my YouTube settings and I had a bit of a thing recently where I thought, I'm not really sure I'm going to carry on with this because it's quite a lot of work and it's quite a lot of effort which I could be putting into making things for my Etsy shop. So I thought, well, I'll have a little mess around with the settings on YouTube and see if I can just sort of pause the channel for a bit. Now, I don't know why I thought I needed to do that, because, you know, what I needed to do really was to just not upload any videos for a while, as I have. So, anyway, in that time, I hid my channel for a bit, and in that time, I thought, why are you being so silly? There's no harm in carrying on with it. If it's only you that watches, that appreciates it, it's no big deal. So, thinking about it, oh, I'm so annoyed with myself. I've gone back into YouTube today and I've made all my videos visible again. But because I chose the option to hide my channel temporarily, it's for some reason has offloaded all of my subscribers. And I really don't know what to do. I also changed the title back to Tanis Makes Stuff because I don't know, I felt like the knitting not screaming was a little bit negative, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, oh god, I'm in such a, I could slap myself, honestly, I'm such a dip. But here we are. So it's spring, officially spring, in the next day or two, isn't it, or whatever. Easter's just around the corner, and I have actually made some stuff in the time since I last saw you. This being the big one, I've just brushed my hair and I've ruined it. Anyway, the half and half scarf, shawl, it's like a blanket. It's absolutely enormous. It took me probably, gosh, at least 2 years to make it. Could be even as much as 4. I started making it, I put it away, I got it out again, I picked it up, I put it down, and it's so vast. I ran out of yarn, I didn't buy enough yarn to make it. But then once I got into the second colour, I started with this lighter mint green, and both these yarns, you probably can't see, are sparkle yarns. It's Adriafil Rugiada. I don't know if that's how you say it, but that's how I'm saying it. Yeah, and I didn't buy anywhere near enough, and I bought it on sale, and I think it's discontinued. Well, I don't know if it was the shop that I bought it from. They had it in their sale bin anyway at Adriafil one year. And I didn't buy enough. So I've had to buy quite a lot more as it went along, and the first half took me forever. But I found once I got into the second colour, I just whizzed along. I don't know. I think maybe it's when you can see the end in sight. Maybe that's what does it. I might have to pause this because my cat's scratching to go outside, even though it's raining. I've opened that back door for her more times than I can tell you already this morning. Hold on. Oops, she just went to use her litter tray, which was right there for her. Don't know why she had to scratch at the back door to alert us all to that, but never mind, she has, and now she's all done. So, now you've had a little update on my cat's bowel movements. Let's get on. Yeah, I'm really happy with this, and I think I'd make another one. I don't think I'll cast one on straight away, but I've got the yarn. I've got the yarn to make another one. I've got some vintage. We can call it 80s vintage, can't we? Yeah, I've got some. I mean, the 80s is quite sorely vintage now, isn't it? Which is upsetting. Anyway, I've got some yarn that's like novelty yarn that's from the late 80s, early 90s, I think, and I've got a ton of it, and I'm going to use it to make another one of these, I think. But it has, I can't do it yet. I have to wait to do it until I feel able, and I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. So if you have managed to find me after my idiocy, I've got an Etsy shop called Gin Poodle. Now, I am a big fan of vintage style, clothing, hair, makeup, films, all that kind of stuff, housewares. But, and I think there's quite a few of us like this, I love it. I used to wear and dress in a vintage style quite a lot, and oh look, you can see where I've done fake tan today. Oh, and I haven't washed off the guide colour yet, so ignore that. Yeah, I used to dress in a vintage style quite a lot, not so much now. I've kind of gone off the amount of effort it takes, and I've seen some posts online on the socials where people who wear vintage every day have said that people that don't wear vintage all the time in real life and only put it on for pictures are like fakes, and they're not really into it and they don't count. And I really dispute that. I think everyone's welcome. If you choose to just dress up in some vintage stuff and take some pictures to put on Instagram or whatever, then yeah, you're part of the vintage community, and that's absolutely fine. If you are more like me and you appreciate the look, but you don't want to necessarily do it yourself, and especially, you know, not everyone, vintage can be expensive now. It used to, in the 80s, it used to be quite a cheap deal. I mean, I used to quite often go out in 1950s ball gowns to nightclubs, but you can't do that now unless you've got you've got some spending power, because a lot of the true vintage now is quite expensive to buy online. The repro is less expensive, but you know, not everyone has the funds, and not everyone has the confidence or the freedom to do that. Like, I can't style my house in a completely vintage way because A, my head is turned by new things a lot, and B, my partner's not really into vintage, so it would be a bit unfair to make him live in a house that was completely vintage styled when it's really not his thing. So, you know, we have a compromise. But yeah, I just wanted to say that, just because I love making knitwear and accessories using vintage patterns. I really enjoy vintage knits, and I like making things in colours that I wouldn't necessarily wear and in styles that wouldn't necessarily suit me, just because I love the thing and I want to make the thing. I don't necessarily want to wear the thing myself because it's not going to fit me or suit me, or, you know, whatever. So I'll put those things into my Etsy shop, and I think that's fine. I mean, I think being part of the vintage community can also just mean enjoying it, viewing. Like, I've never really been to any vintage events apart from the Goodwood Revival. It's pretty close to where I live, and it's also about vintage motorsports, and my partner likes motorsports, so, you know, we both enjoy that, and he doesn't mind, you know, dressing up for the day, and I think on that day that means he's part of the vintage community. I don't have a problem with that. But yeah, I hate that when people start, because I think that can be really off-putting for other people who want to, you know, try something. And I think if you only want to wear vintage on your birthday, and only then if your birthday falls on a Sunday, then that is also fine. It's, you know, you don't have to devote your whole life to your hobby or your interest to make it valid. That's all I'm saying. I hate people who put barriers up to other people's enjoyment. It's not your business. Move on. I mean, you enjoy the way that you do things, but don't tell other people what they can and can't do. It annoys me. So, after that little moment, sorry, it's just because I've just seen like some things online because I've been scrolling through, and I've seen some posts on the socials that were very much about like, you know, I'm real because this is me every day. And it's like, well, great, that's amazing and it's really impressive, but then to also be putting down people who don't do what you do is, it takes it, you know, it takes a little bit of the edge off the enjoyment of you if you do that. Anyway, after all that's all got me round to saying, in my Etsy shop, which is called Jim Poodle, I mainly sell these 1940s style hairnets called snoods. And I started making these because I'm really bad at doing my own hair, really bad, shockingly bad. So these are a really simple way to get an authentic vintage hair look. I mean, if you've ever watched All Creatures Great and Small, the new series of All Creatures Great and Small, they actually bought a couple of my snoods. I've not spotted them on screen yet because they tend to use much chunkier, bigger ones, and mine are the finer type. Yeah, you just pop it on the back of your head and all your hair sits in it, and then you can just style the front. Now even I can style my fringe because I have a horseshoe fringe, which gives you, you know, a bit of a 50s look anyway. So, and then the rest of it I don't have to worry about, like putting it in curlers and setting it, brushing it out, getting it all purple, or worse, trying to put it up. And I am absolutely useless. Like, when everyone was going mad for victory rolls, my hair's so fine that they just didn't work for me. They just look really weedy and just a bit rubbish. So yeah, so that didn't really work for me. And I fought that for a long time. Hair pieces and back combing to death, and oh gosh, I've made my voice go all croaky with the stress of the remembrance of trying to get my hair to look nice. So yeah, just pop the old snood on the back, maybe a little half hat on top. You've got a really good vintage look. And then even then, if your clothes, if you haven't got some authentic vintage clothes, even if you buy modern pieces that might be more like cigarette pants work really well for a vintage style. By wearing the snood and, you know, a bit of black eyeliner, you've already got quite a 50s look going on. So whatever else you do helps. You know, it's already helped along the way. Because mainly people are looking at your face and your head. Unless you're wearing like a really, you know, like a really wide net skirt, and I can't wear those because I'm busty and the proportions on me look horrendous. I'm short-waisted, and that going out in out thing doesn't seem to work on me. If I try and nip in my waist, it just makes me look like the amazing tit monster, which is not my favourite look. Anyway, I'm trying to oh gosh, I'm such a waffler. You can see why I mistakenly deleted my content, because it was all like this. Yeah, I'm trying to restock my spring colours. So I've got cream, and this one's this lovely pinky purpley mix, which is beautiful. And then I'm going to do like all my pastels, like I've got a pastel blue and green and pink, and just get all those sort of spring, early summer colours restocked, and not concentrate quite so much on, I always get black ones in stock, but not so much the, you know, the dark. I've got brown. I've restocked brown recently because I thought, well, brown with Easter eggs are usually chocolate, milk chocolate. So my milk chocolate colour snood. Do you see where I'm going? This makes a lot of sense to me. So I would normally sort all my stuff out into finished objects, whips and what have you, and I'm just not going to today because I've so loused up my channel. I don't think anything matters anymore. So we're going to just dive into bags and see what's in them. This is some brown acrylic yarn. What was that for? Ah, yes. This is a whip that's going quite well, I think. Now, I need to diversify my Jim Poodle channel, and I want to start doing some in-person craft fairs. So I'm getting ready for winter. It's March, I know, but I'm making some headbands. I'm just covering that, so I'll just see if it covers my ear. So this is Tunisian crochet, but it looks a bit, oh, I've got it all my up. It looks like knitting. It looks like rib knitting, and that's, I just taught myself that watching YouTube videos at the weekend. So that's a very small beginning of a headband, and I don't even have a Tunisian crochet hook. I'm just using a standard one, a standard, you know, crochet hook, because I don't know that you really need to buy all the fancy equipment from day one. Isn't, you know, just see if you like something and have a go. This was a charity knit I was going to make, a little cardigan, and it didn't work out. And this is again like a cheapo acrylic, but very nice too. And this is the same deal. I'm making another headband. You can see it much better this because it's such a lighter cut, much lighter colour. So that'll be a headband, and I'll do it, you know, so it goes all the way around the back, and then has that little cute little twist bit at the front that makes it look a little bit turban-y. So that might still appeal to my vintage girls, but also is something that I could put on a craft stall. And I'm basically winging that. I've just learned how to do the stitch, and then I'm going to just wing how I make them. Make it up as I go along, which I think will be smashing and splendid. And that is not my first attempt on any of those. I haven't just like picked up the hook and then suddenly it's worked. I've tried knitting them. I was doing them in fisherman's rib, and it was taking forever, and I thought that's not really a viable thing to do if you're selling things. And then I just had a few goes using different type, shape, size hooks and different stitches, and then I've hit on that one, and that's one that I like most at the moment. These things generally change with me. I've got a little life thing to show you. I'm telling you, I'm going to be all over the place. I have got a complicated family history, should we put it that way? And I think a lot of people do, don't they? Most people have some sort of nonsense. My mum and dad's marriage wasn't that great, and my dad was a bit shady about his background. In fact, he had 2 birthdays. He had 2 birthdays, very similar dates in the same month, but he would just pick whichever day he preferred. Now, I'm not sure. He used to hide all of his paperwork. No one ever saw a birth certificate, passport, nothing. Nothing was seen. No other paperwork was, anything of his was always locked away. And he'd cut himself off from his family, and he cut us off from my mum's family as well. And I found, when I was 13 and I was poking about, I found some divorce papers in their bedroom, and they mentioned his divorce. I knew my mum was divorced from a previous marriage because I've got an older sister from who's, you know, my mum's from that marriage, but I didn't know my dad had been married before. Anyway, livid. It did not go down at all well that I found that. In fact, I don't think he ever knew that I knew. But I saw that he had a son, but for reasons we won't go into because that's also his personal history, my dad didn't have any contact with him, wasn't granted any contact with him in the divorce. So I've always thought, oh God, that kid, you know, he's my brother, he's out there somewhere. And you think, did his mum tell him, you know, what happened? Or did he just think that his parents split up and then his dad just disappeared and never contacted him again? You don't know what story he's been, you know, how what story he's been told, or you know, if he's got the truth that I don't know. So I paid a company once to look for him. Now my older sister remembers a boy from her childhood, but that's not the name on the divorce papers that I saw. So I paid a search company who found him, and I can't share his details because obviously that's his story. That's my dad's first marriage and child. Now he thinks that my mum split up his parents' marriage, and it wasn't. I think it was the second. I think my mum was the third wife, whereas everyone thinks that she's a second wife, but I think she's a third wife. Quite complicated. Anyway, I can't find any trace of this other child. Now it could be that he's a child from a previous relationship of hers and not related to my dad at all, in which case I'll probably never find him, and good luck to him, and I hope his life's going well. But if he is my brother, I'd quite like to find him. The other half brother from my dad's first marriage, it's a little bit awkward because obviously he thinks that my mum's a trollop. My late mum was a trollop who broke up his parents' otherwise happy marriage, which you can see would be a bit awkward. So I have, now for years, I've been asking for one of these for birthdays and Christmas and never got one. So I've just thought, so it's my birthday soon, I'm going to just buy myself the Ancestry DNA kit. Now I know before anyone tells me, these things can be like dropping a bomb in your family. I've heard stories of people finding out their parents aren't who they think they are, and yada yada. But I'm cool with that. I saw my cat's walking on my tripod. Right, Lou. Yeah, good girl. I'm okay because I'm, you know, I know that my mum and dad are my mum and dad. But I would just like to find out, see if we can just throw up some other people in my family, because as I say, if you can hear that scratching, that's my cat playing with her paper. She loves a brown paper bag, and she's got one that she's ripped to shreds, and she just likes batting it. Yeah, so as I say, we were isolated from the rest of the family. So I grew up not knowing any cousins, aunts, uncles, that kind of thing. There's a whole part of my mum's side of the family that I didn't know existed until I was 16, 17. But that's another story. I have an uncle who died, who was married and had a daughter, and no one knows what happened to them. After he died, she just disappeared. I think there's a second wife and son who I'd quite like to find. My mum's side of the family, my maternal grandfather was Swedish, and he came to England, married my English grandmother, and I think he was from a rural community in Sweden. He was a carpenter, and I know his name, and that's about all I know about him. We know he was a master craftsman. We know quite a sad story. Their youngest son died, so pre-NHS. He died of a burst appendix. He didn't get medical help until it was too late, because it just hadn't been recognised quite how serious it was. And then my grandfather couldn't cope with the grief and basically killed himself. He drank himself to death. The marriage broke up because of the death of the child, and yeah, it's quite a sad story. But again, I could have quite a lot of family in Sweden. It might be nice. But I just thought it'd be interesting, And also, if all I get is that kind of thing where you find out the makeup of your genes, because my dad's first family were Jewish. He wasn't. So, wasn't when we knew him, he wasn't. But was he Jewish originally and just, married out in the end? I don't know. Did he just turn his back on it? Well, I know he wasn't at all religious, but I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. maybe we'll just find out that I'm, you know, 1% Irish, 3% Welsh, you know, like everyone else does, you know, and then I'll be 20% Swedish and 49% British, you know what I mean? You always, it might end up with just, you know, just I'm all right with that. But ideally, you know, obviously I want the Annie moment where you find out that these are not your real parents and that you're the last known relative of the people that grew a massive fortune in Sweden based on their farming. Anyway, this is another whip. This is one of these. And you would have seen this before and in this same colour. This is the second one I'm making in this colour. So you cast on some stitches, then you do a couple of rows, then you do some increases, then you just knit a scarf just in garter, just on big fat needles. These are 6.5mm. Yeah, and you just keep going for a scarf length. Then you drop all the increased stitches, all ladders. Then you do a few more rows, you cast off, you whack a pom-pom on each end. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. Nice job. Nice work if you can get it. But yeah, this is the third one I've made. One of them I made and it was a bit of a disaster because there was a pull in it, a run, and I thought I'd worked it back in. And then it turned out I hadn't. So that was a bit of a blooming disaster. But this one will not be a disaster. Well, what else am I going to show you? I should be going... Oh, I've got an hour. I've nearly got an hour until I have to go out. I'm supposed to be going to my knitting group this afternoon, but it's raining and I'm a wuss about that sort of thing. I've spent some time doing my fringe this morning, and let me tell you, I have got absolutely no intention of ruining this fringe with drizzle. Now, I don't know if you have seen this, but there is, it's popped up on Facebook recently and has become really quite popular. A group where crafters can help farmers, and it's called Woolly Jumpers for Woolly Jumpers. And you basically make little jumpers for lambs because it's lambing season. And then there's this Facebook page that's Woolly Jumpers for Woolly Jumpers. And they coordinate you with a farmer, and you knit some of these little things and then you post them off. And then because it's particularly cold and wet at the moment, some of the lambs need a little bit of help. The farmers can buy little jackets, but they're really quite expensive. So this is just like a nice little thing that people can do, and it's taking off enormously. I've made one so far, and they do want them in bright colours so that they can see them. This is my fluoro orange. This is a little one, and this one is for girls because it's the same size. These are the your little head comes up there. There's your little armholes, and that goes along the body. And the boys one is shorter underneath to allow for it. And that's what I make. So this is the smallest size. There you go. I'm just on the neck hole. Just done the neck hole, and then the underneath bit will probably only come to about there. So yeah, I mean, they're super. You could knock one of those up every evening quite easily. And I think they still need knitters, and there are still farmers signing up. And I think that's one of those things that's going to get bigger every year. So I think I might every now and then just knock out a little lamb jumper. Now, I'm supposed to be going to my knitting group this afternoon because some of the other ladies are making them, and I've said I don't mind bundling them all up and posting them rather than them all having to separately do it, because some of the women don't use Facebook at all. Some people don't really go online. There's a lot of I don't want to stereotype people, but we've got some older people who are not that keen on things like Facebook. We've got some people just who are going to just do it themselves and don't need any sort of coordination. But for the people who don't want to be bothered with making contact with the farmer and yada yada, I said I'd do that bit. this is a one-time only offer. This is not something I'm going to do regularly. So yeah, the only thing is they really wanted a local farmer, but I've suggested that a couple of times on the group. Went down like a lead balloon, so I don't think that's going to happen. But you know, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'm also very much of the opinion you should just be grateful for what you get. And if I want to send my jumpers to a local farmer, I don't really see the problem with that. But apparently that is a problem. So I play along with whatever they want. Now this I definitely have shown you before because I showed it to you all of last year. But this is this year's temperature blanket. And here is March from the red bit up. Oh, I just had this awful feeling that I didn't hit record. So yeah, pretty wet and grey for March, I'd say. That's what that means. All those, and those are like the really chilly colours. The green bits are the bits we haven't like had some days where I've been able to have like my lunch in the garden this year so far. In March, this month rather, not this year. Had a few times. Me and Lou, cat, sat in the garden for lunch, but it's been a bit grey and miserable the last day or two, so that's over for now. Now, oh yes, this I've shown you before. I'm making a jumper for the mister, and this is the Woody Knit British Wool 4-ply in chestnut. This is just like a really quite a standard V-neck jumper for the mister that's knit in double moss stitch, and it's in this chestnut colour, which is a very dark brown, so you won't be able to see, but it's got this lovely texture. Can you see that at all? Quite possibly not. Now this is the front. As you can see, it's knit in pieces, which I like. I know a lot of people only like knitting jumpers in the round, but I don't like that weird thing it does with the underarm dragging and pulling and gappy stitches. Don't like that at all. So, and I am, because I like knitting, so that was my cat walking off the tripod again. Thanks, Lou. Good girl. That's it. Jump up. Yay. She only likes sitting on my seat on the sofa, which is over there. Yeah, I had knit most of the front, and I like, because I like vintage knits, they're generally pieced, and I have no problem with knitting things in pieces whatsoever, so I'm happy with this. But you have to do 43 centimeters before you start doing the neck shaping and what have, or armholes and then necks, and I got 40 centimeters, and then I realized I copped up a couple of rows, so I had like this really obvious stripe right across the middle where I'd done a hitch in the little jud out in my double moss stitch, so I had to rip loads of it back. I had to take it right back to 20 centimeters, and because it's dark yarn and you have to keep an eye on what you're doing with a double moss stitch, because you're doing like basically a 1x1 rib for 2 rows, and then when you come back you break that rib and do like where you would have knit you purl, and where you would have purled you knit for 2 rows, and then you go back again. So it's, anyway, quite annoying, and I can't really do it in the evening because it's dark, and the mister likes, when he's finished work and comes home in the evening, he likes to watch TV in gloom, and I like really bright lights, so this is not really working for me, keeping this on as a shawl. And I think it's a mixture of, the top I'm wearing is silky stuff, it's all slidey, so it all keeps coming off, but also I think it's the old boobage. I think having a heavy chest means my shawls don't sit right. I think it just makes things slide off. I don't know. Anyone else heard of that? Or is that just in my head? I've got a bit of a chip on my shoulder about having boobs, to be honest. Oh, I wish I didn't have, I wish, well, you always want what you don't have, don't you? No, I don't want them. This I've definitely shown you. This yarn is leftover Rico Design Superba 12 4-ply superwash yarn. And I made the mystery pair of socks in this. I don't recommend this for socks. It's really fluffy and lovely, but it sheds like bilio and goes a bit felty, I think. I think it will go a bit felty, but it has made the most lovely Sophie scarf. Now, let me drop that and put it on. I haven't blocked it, and I don't think I'm going to bother blocking it because I blocked the pink one I made and I blocked the guts out of it and it lost all its squish. So there you are. It's a nice thing, isn't it? Well, I think it does need blocking actually, because it could do with a bit more length. Anyway, I've got quite a lot of the yarn left, and I could have just made this longer, which might have been the sensible option, but you know, that's not always me, is it? The sensible option. Oh, it's not, because it's so nice just under a jacket or something. Just that little bit of warmth on your neck. I do love it, and it's so easy to make, isn't it? It's so sort of mindless. Anyway, I wear a lot of dark colours, so this sort of fade from dark into light grey and back out again, that will fit in with pretty much all of my wardrobe. And I've got enough. I haven't weighed the yarn yet, but I'm wondering if I could squeeze another one out of this. So there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot of yarn left. When you hold that, that feels heavier than that. That's a very unscientific way of doing it. Just blush away that at some point in the not too distant and see where we are. Now, not much more to go now. Be strong. We can make this. At the end, I'm going to put in, I went to Unravel Festival, which was lovely, and I stayed over in Farnham, and it was super. I booked an Airbnb, and I can't recommend it enough. Now, I'm not really someone who likes to go to things in groups. I like going to places like Unravel, but I don't really chat to, I'm not very good at crowds of people and stuff, and you know, big meetups and things. I just feel super awkward. But I'll pop that in at the end. Oh, hang on, no, I might pop it in this bit because my cat scratchings go out again now. Hold on. So this little break might be a good point. Right, you're even next going to see a load of Unravel nonsense, which will be mainly about the natural dyeing workshop I did, and nothing about the stalls really, because I feel super awkward filming people on the stalls, and also people walking around. I don't really like it if someone would be filming my bum when I'm bending over looking at yarn, so I don't do it to other people. Oh no, she's back, she's back. Hang on, Lou, I'm going to let you out, hold on. It has actually stopped raining, so I could go out. But now I kind of got in the mood for not going out. But then, if I can go out, I should go out because I kind of promised, haven't I? I'll go and pick up those lamb jumpers. It's a 20-minute walk into town from here. But I could get the bus. Anyway, if you've just seen the unraveled stuff, I really enjoyed that workshop. It was really lovely people. There was one group though. There was a group of 4 people who were a family. There were looked like 2 sisters and their sort of 20-something son and girlfriend, and they were lovely people, but they all had those sort of booming middle-class voices, and they talked the whole time. Didn't matter whether the tutor was talking or not, whether you were trying to listen to something or not, they just rah 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 me all day. It was like a 4-hour thing. They didn't draw breath the whole time, and I think that's a bit obnoxious. It was a bit me. I mean, they seem like nice people, but they would be nicer people if they turned the volume down. And that spoilt it for me really, because, and this is why I tend not to do group things, because I couldn't concentrate. Even when I could hear, or you could also hear, it was just the constant noise of them. So yeah, I find it quite hard to tune people out. And I know other people, because the woman I was sitting next to, I said to her at some point, I can't hear, and she was like, And what can you do? What can you do? The tutor really should have said, guys, can you put a sock in it for 5 minutes, please? But she didn't. So what can you do? What can you do? Just don't book another one. That's what I'm going to do. Right. In my effort to diversify things in my Etsy shop a bit, because I can't be just making snooze all the time, especially if there's going to be issues with me not wearing vintage clothes myself 24/7, meaning that I get disrespected for that. So if you are in the sort of vintage community, you will know the phenomenon of the Miss Marple Scarf, which is a keyhole scarf. Now, I'm only referencing the Miss Marple Scarf. There's a free pattern to that online if you want to make one yourself, because it explains what a keyhole scarf is. A keyhole scarf is a bit like the sort of dimensions of the Sophie scarf, only a bit chunkier, and one end goes through a little, it narrows into a small bit, and one bit goes through the other, and it just sits nicely around your neck. It's known as the Miss Marple Scarf because on the TV adaptation of some of the Miss Marple novels, she wears one. Miss Marple, from the Agatha Christie character, Miss Marple, wears one in the TV series, and it's set sort of in the sort of 30s, 40s, and they're really popular amongst the vintage community. There is a maker whose name escapes me. I will put a link probably to her Etsy shop down below, who makes them and sells them if you don't want to make one yourself. But seeing as we're all knit, so you probably could just make one yourself. Anyway, she sells them, and obviously lots of people make them. It's a vintage pattern that's out in the wild anyway. Someone's done a mod not update that you can buy, that you can get for free from Ravelry, and you can Google that. It's literally called the Miss Marple Scarf. But because I have a, an online connection with the woman in the UK that makes them, obviously I don't want to make them to sell there either. And the Miss Marple pattern that's free is for personal use only. Just make that clear. So I am making my own version of a keyhole scarf that's quite basic, but I quite like simple things. So this is, sorry, there's a join there that I need to sew in. A fisherman's rib version of a keyhole scarf. So that bit will sit there, the little cross goes there, and it literally sits like that on your neck. So you have a bit that goes around your neck that you have a bit wider, so it you can just turn it over a little bit like a little collar. Super cute. And really soft and squishy. And I love fisherman's rib. I also love brioche. Which I think this, you know, we could easily do this as a brioche, but fisherman's rib gives you that similar squish, but you know, all in one colour with a bit less faff. So that's what I'm going for, and I'm really happy with that. And probably by the next time I see you, that will be done, and will have made probably more of them, because it's going to be quite a quick knit, that really, I think. Right, finishing line is in sight, people. Don't worry, we're nearly done. This is the other thing I'm making with this, but this is a pattern that's a double-sided pattern. The other side is this. That's a drop stitch. The pom-pom, see, funny spelling. A scarf is a drop stitch pattern, and this is the drop stitch sweater, jumper. Drops. I'm not going to say sweater. Sweater's such an Americanism, and I'm so not. God bless them, love them, but you know, divided by shared language and all that. So yeah, this is the drop stitch sweater. This says it's the quickest jumper you've ever knitted. Now, the pom-pom scarf, they reckon you can knit one in an evening, and I'm sorry, but you know, just shy of 200 rows, that's not true. This seems to be enormous. I've cast on the right number of stitches and I'm going with it, but that's much wider, isn't it? That is much wider, and I'm on gauge. I mean, that is a close fitting thing. So I'm a little bit stressed about that. Yeah, you make the front and back the same. So I don't know if I'm going to end up with a ginormous one. So, and again, this is something that's not going to suit me because I don't wear short sleeve things, or, you know, no sleeve things. This pink certainly wouldn't suit me. So this is something, an example of a vintage knit that's going to go into my Etsy shop when it's done. And because it doesn't need to fit me, it will be sold as whatever the dimensions work out at when I cast it off. So, but I'm going to have another measure up, I think, of the tension on that, because I'm sure, I mean, that looks so wrong to me. But then I know from making the scarf that when you drop the stitches, it elongates it enormously and narrows it. So hopefully that will work. I'm going to just trust it. I'm just going to trust it for now. And if when I drop the stitches, if it looks pants, then I can just frog it and start again, can't I? Try something else. I mean, and that's another joy of vintage patterns, is you don't ever really know quite what you're getting with them, because you don't have like 2,000 people on Ravelry all making the same thing, so you can't check anyone else's notes to see if there's a, like in the scarf, there's a definite mistake in the pattern. If you follow the pattern to the letter, you drop the, when it tells you to drop the increased stitches, if you follow the count, you, even without knitting it, just reading it, you can see if you do follow the pattern exactly, you're dropping the wrong stitches, which will be a right pain in the bum, because the actual knitting, just the garter bit where you're just doing the long loads of stitches doing plain garter, is quite boring. Right, last thing, here we are. Who knows if anyone will ever subscribe to me again. I had a grand total of 46 subscribers, and now I have none, not one. Quite annoyed with myself. Anyway, 46 was mega for me. You need you know, some people make money from YouTube, don't they? But you need a minimum of 500 subscribers to earn some pennies. And yeah, I was a mere 454 subscribers away. Never mind. Right. And it's only taken me just over a year to get to that as well. Never mind. Right, these are socks I'm making for the mister. These are socks that, this yarn is an opal. It's nice, isn't it? An opal yarn. And it is, no, it's not opal. It's not opal. Ooh, it's another Rico Designs. This means I bought it from My Yarnery and haven't, because they stock a lot of Rico Designs yarn. Superba Melange Jacquard. Well, that's 4-ply sock yarn to you. And it means it's variegated, I suppose. Melange Jacquard. Anyway. Long time ago, Mr. asked me to make him some brown socks. And then I just got obsessed with making him grey socks and just made, even though he didn't want grey socks, just made him loads of pairs of grey socks. And then I bought this yarn, which is brown, but also grey, which is also not really what he wanted, but is quite nice. Since then, I've made him a pair of brown socks that had some stripes up the leg. And I can't remember, that might have been an opal yarn. Anyway, super nice, really liked those. But they're still not plain brown, are they? These will also not be plain brown, but we're going to cope. We're going to cope, people. He won't complain because he's too nice. He's too nice to say, these socks are all Smashing Smith, but not one of them is what I've asked for. Or what you offered, I should say. So, that, my loves, is your lot. I've got one book to show you that I'm still reading that I showed you last time, so that'll be nice and quick, won't it? Our Hidden Lives. It's by Simon Garfield. It's, have you heard of Mass Observation? These are post-Second World War diary entries from some people, not really randomly selected, but people selected from the Mass Observation Project, where people submit diary entries, daily, weekly, whenever they can, and they're just kept as like a sort of social record. And apparently, when this book was published anyway, not many people had looked at those immediate post-war period entries, and it's absolutely fascinating. I have to warn you, there's a lot of outdated language in here and views. There's a shocking amount of anti-Semitic opinion, which I kind of think, like, I suppose it's sort of like, you know, British saviour syndrome, isn't it? You think of yourself as being, because we're on the side of the good guys, that we were trying to save Jewish people in the Second World War. But when you read these diary entries, the anti-Semitic feeling in the UK seems to have been quite widespread and horrible, like really shockingly bad, which is quite a hard read. There's also quite a lot of use of the N-word in here, and bizarrely, 9 times out of 10, I think that it doesn't come across as that it's being used maliciously. It's a strange thing. It's just used as a word, like, you know, like how some people describe anyone with brown skin as Indian without really checking any kind of heritage, or, you know, do you know what I mean? That it's not meant unkindly, and it's not meant, the way they're using the N-word is not necessarily meant to be derogatory. It's really hard to put across. It's just as if it's just an acceptable word, and obviously it's really not. But yeah, it is something to look out for if you're gonna read this. I wouldn't read this on the train or the tube, or, you know, like any sort of public transport, because someone sitting next to you who's gonna see some pretty unpleasant words and opinions in it. And I always think, if I'm reading that, does that look, and people see that, they're gonna think that I'm reading this because I'm a fan of that sort of thing. Maybe I'm overthinking that, but, you know, it is, I think you can't deny history, and it's an eye-opener to see how prejudiced people were then and how prejudiced people were without thinking that that was malicious. Oh, it's really, yeah, it's difficult, but it's also really interesting for how long, you know, rationing went on for, just, you know, the way that people entertain themselves, what's considered a good night out, and, you know, how people get their news even, and the price of things is quite shocking as well. Like there's a couple who are hoping to buy a new radio, and they're not talking about buying something super fancy pants, but they want to buy a new radio, and they're talking about spending £30 on it, which is, you'd buy a radio for £30 now. So that must have been the most fancy radio in the world. In the end, they don't buy it because they realise it's the Philips that they have already is just as good. So yeah, that's quite shocking. And things like bread rationing and potato rationing. There's like a guy who gets really, really upset at the thought of potato rationing and only being allowed 3 pounds of potatoes a week, because, you know, him and his wife are pretty fond of a spud. So I mean, there's a lot of humour in it, but yeah, I'd read it at home and be warned. I'm also listening to an audio book that's called, and I can't remember who it's by, I'll put it in the doodah, I might even put a little picture of it on there, called Knit 1 Kill 2. So it's a cosy murder mystery, with a little bit of light romance in it as well. I'm listening to that on audiobook, and that's really fun. It's just a nice sort of light-hearted thing, which is quite a good foil to the iffy bits in that book, and deliciously not realistic at all. So I think that's me done. Now, will I ever get my 46 friends back? Who knows? Who knows? What time is it? Oh, it's 1:05. I better get my skates on. If I'm going out, and I think I am, I need to sort some stuff out and make sure little pudding is properly fed. Do you need to know that? No, you don't. Ta-da!